The creatures we call Sasquatch, Yeti, or Bigfoot are often described as fairly peaceful creatures who simply don't want people to disturb their lives in their forests. But over the past 100 years, there have been many cases when yetis brutally attacked people and even killed them. These mysterious hairy giants are not at all as good-natured as they might seem. Probably the most famous case of a yeti attacking a person occurred in the summer of 1924. 5 prospectors, Marion Smith, his son Roy Smith, Fred Beck, Gabe Lefebvre, and John Peterson, went to work on Mount St. Helens in Skamania County, Washington. The men were near their camp, 8 miles from Spirit Lake, when they encountered their first mystery. They saw imprints of unusually large footprints on the ground, similar to human ones, but 14 inches 35 centimeters long and with very short toes. Soon after this, people noticed some large creature flashing behind the trees and following on the heels of the people walking. It was 7 feet 2 meters tall, and in appearance resembled a gorilla, but with long black hair and very large vertically protruding ears by the way. This is an atypical detail in the description of a yeti. At the sight of this seemingly dangerous animal, the prospectors became very nervous. And finally one of them, Marion Smith, could not stand it and fired a gun at the trees behind which the creature was hiding. He wanted to scare it away, but the creature did not lag behind. The next morning, July 10th, Fred Beck saw this creature standing nearby at the edge of a very deep cliff and decided to shoot directly at it. The creature, after being shot, fell straight down into the canyon from a height of 400 feet, 121 meters, and apparently fell to its death. But in the evening the reckoning came. The men sitting in their hut in the camp heard a loud sound of impact on the roof of the building, and after that part of their hut was damaged. But this was only the beginning. New blues soon followed. These were stones flying at high speed. They damaged the roof and window of the building, and also hit Beck, who lost consciousness from the impact. Later, prospectors said that their camp was attacked by dozens of hairy creatures. Beck himself was very scared and said that he tried to shoot at these monsters, spinning in all directions. The battle with the hairy creatures, which the miners nicknamed mountain devils, lasted all night and ended in the defeat of the people. The prospectors simply fled their camp, leaving behind all their property, supplies, and tools. This story quickly spread throughout the area, and Indians began to say that the prospectors encountered the so-called wild Sedic tribe. These wild creatures are believed to have supernatural powers and are generally peaceful. But here they apparently took revenge for the death of their fellow tribesmen. The place where the massacre happened was called Monkey Canyon. Later, this story was repeatedly revised by storytellers and authors of various books. New details were added to it, and the size of the creatures and the fury of their attacks increased. But this still remains not only one of the earliest cases of encountering a Yeti, Bigfoot, in North America, but also one of the most striking cases of encountering a Yeti in general. The mystical disappearance of climber Jim Carter in 1950 in Monkey Canyon added even more mystery to this case. He was part of a group of 20 people. It was a warm and sunny day, and his disappearance was sudden and mysterious. Later, traces were discovered, as if a person was running very quickly and trying to find shelter in the crevices. The canyon was thoroughly searched by more than 70 people for 2 weeks, and nothing was found. No remains or other traces of Carter. One of the members of the search team, Bob Lee, said that during the search period he constantly felt someone's gaze on him from the direction of the forest thickets. It was my scariest experience of all time, Bob said years later in an interview. There was something strange on the slopes of those mountains, and it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. I had no weapons except an ice axe, and believe me, I never let him out of my hands. The disappearance of Jim Carter is still a mystery. Dr. Otto Trott, Lee Stark, and I are sure that he was captured by the mountain devils. Bob Lee further said that he found out that in 20 years in Monkey Canyon, as many as 25 cases of encounters with mountain devils were noted, some of them of an aggressive nature. For example, monkey-like creatures once greatly monster from Sasquatch swamp. The case of Bigfoot attacks on people in Monkey Canyon is the most famous, but not the earliest in North America. In 1829, on February 9th, several newspapers, including the Statesman and the Connecticut Sentinel, wrote about an attack by a hairy giant on people in Sasquatch Swamp in Georgia. This story began after 2 men and a boy went to explore the swamp, but noticed large footprints and then decided to return home, frightened by what they saw. Later, hearing about the huge footprints, many hunters decided to find the mysterious creature. They found a guide and a group of hunters went in search of the creature deep into the swamp. First they found large humanoid footprints, and then they tracked down the creature itself. However, the monster decided not to give up without a fight, and apparently at first they wanted to capture him alive. But after he attacked and killed 5 hunters, he himself was quickly finished off, shot with 7 rifles. The carcass was examined and measured on site. The creature was a huge 13 feet tall, almost 4 meters, and was covered from head to toe with coarse hair. But after that, the surviving hunters left the swamps as quickly as possible, leaving the bodies of their dead comrades and the carcass of the monster at the battle site. People were afraid that their actions would anger evil forces and bring trouble upon themselves. It is unknown whether everything was exactly as it was described, or whether there are many exaggerations, or whether it is all a fiction. But local Indians regularly observed and continue to observe mysterious monkey-like creatures in these swamps. Terror in the forest. Another early case of Yeti attacking people was recorded in 1895. The San Francisco newspaper The Call published an article entitled Terror in the Woods in its November 27th issue. The article stated that several loggers had mysteriously disappeared from the local forests. The bodies of some were later found, but they looked as if they had been brutally tormented by a powerful beast. It was believed that people were attacked by predatory animals, and lumberjacks began to leave their places of work out of fear. But one of the loggers managed to survive the attack on him and said that he was attacked by a wild man. The man had only his axe with him, and it was with it that he managed to fight off the monster, who attacked as if he wanted to kill the man. After this, the strange humanoid creature was seen several more times in the forest, but each time he managed to escape from people, and the creature ran at the speed of a deer. The creature was described as a man who looked almost like an animal, had a large shaggy beard, and was wearing what looked like a leather coat. After some debate, it was decided that he was a feral man who had once gotten lost in the forests and then gone crazy. What happened to this creature later remains unknown. Attack in Montana. Another case was published in 1892 in the book The Wilderness Hunter, written by none other than future U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt. The case describes a meeting with a certain migrant bowman, who told about the incident with him and his partner. The men set up camp somewhere in the wilds of Montana near a river and went to set traps for animals. When they returned, they saw that their hut was broken. Their bags were torn and their contents were scattered around. But instead of leaving this place, Bauman and his friend decided to stay here for the night. At night, Bauman woke up from a strange sound, like the scraping of a brush, and also from a strong, unbearable stench. Bauman grabbed a rifle and fired almost at random into the darkness at the sound, after which a certain creature quickly ran away from the camp. The next morning it was decided to get away from this place. But first Bauman decided to go into the forest and collect the traps that had been set earlier. When he returned, he found his friend dead with his neck horribly twisted. There were also bite marks on the neck, hairy hand. Another case occurred in 1965 in Michigan, Monroe County. 17-year-old Christina Van Acker was driving home with her mother. It was late evening, dark, and suddenly there was a crash, as if their car had run over something. Thinking that they had crushed some kind of animal, the women stopped the car and wanted to get out of it and look. But as soon as Christina lowered the side window, a huge hairy hand reached out, grabbed the girl by the hair and hit her hard against the car door, so that Christina lost consciousness. She woke up from the loud screams of her mother, who was screaming in fright, and the creature was no longer there. Perhaps the scream scared him away. The girl's mother assured that the escaped creature was covered with black hair. Farm attack. This is a relatively recent case. It occurred in rural Oklahoma in 2000. The story was told by an eyewitness who gave only his name, Mike. According to him, he owns a farm in the area. But a few months after he bought the farm and moved here with his family, strange things began to happen. One evening, Mike heard the sounds of strong slamming from the front door, and later noticed a very tall figure flashing near the house. After this, about 30 chickens suddenly disappeared from the chicken coop, and the door of the barn was broken down with force and pieces of venison were taken from there. In addition to all this, Mike more than once heard strange loud squeals and screams from the forest not far from the farm, and always only at night. In order to catch the thief, Mike called his brother for help, and together they spent several nights on duty. One night they caught the creature by surprise and were able to see its hairy, ape-like face. The creature growled at them, and after that the brothers shot at it with their guns. Then they saw that the creature ran, but then fell to the ground dead. But they did not check it and approached the fallen man. The next morning, what happened in Monkey Canyon awaited them. Farmer Mike's house was raided. The windows were broken by stones, and the mills were also damaged by large stones. All this was done by other hairy creatures, and Mike says that they howled terribly. After that, Mike and his family moved to another place.